We're currently in a series called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And I said to someone this week, this is what we're talking about. And they were like, what does that even mean? So obviously they need some help, but I'll send them to the pastoral page. This is week 3. Kirstine did week 1. And if you haven't listened, you can go online. Kirstine spoke about the problem with emotionally unhealthy spirituality. And last week, Matt spoke about breaking the power of the past. Both talks are online. Please do look at them. And this series is based on a book by the same title by a New York pastor whose surname, Matt, is? Pete Scazzaro. Thank you. Peter. I will refer to him as Peter from now on. When I say Peter, I am not referring to Peter, the writer in the Bible. I am referring to Peter, the author of this book. Let's not get the two confused. Let's start by praying before we go into this week's talk. Lord, thank you that you do meet us where we are. Thank you that it is your desire to heal, to make us whole, to make us emotionally as well as spiritually healthy. Thank you that you are not dissuaded by the mess that we bring, but that we can come to you in all of it and meet a loving, compassionate, kind, wonderful, patient, accepting God who is delighted in us. And so we look to you, the author and the finisher of our faith. Do what you do best. Let anything that is not of you, just let it fall away, Lord. Come, Holy Spirit. Amen. So this week we are looking at becoming your authentic self. It's interesting, as I was going over this material, as I said, I've been coming here for 22 years, and it gave me a really good opportunity to reflect on my own journey and where I came from, when I was younger and in my spiritual walk, and how I have gone from some very unhealthy emotional places, therefore unhealthy spirituality, to allowing God and responding to an invitation by God to actually sort out some of my crap. And in the process, I remembered key moments over the past years where God invited me to reckon with myself, to reckon with my emotions, my thinking, my belief systems, my expectations of him, of others, and of myself. And I looked at moments that I responded to that invitation by reckoning with myself, and moments where I responded by declining the invitation. And I stayed stagnant. Now, the nice thing about God is he has this incredible way of re-inviting you. You know, it's like when, if someone invites you to their house and you say, that's really nice, but no thanks. And then next time they see you, they're like, would you like to come round? And then, yeah, I'd rather not, but thanks so much. And then the next time it's like, really, I'd love you to come round. Yeah, no. And finally you're like, fine, I'll come. And sometimes that's what it's been like with me and God, where it's like, fine, you keep inviting me. The thing is, you get there, and it's, oh, thank God I came. This is just what I needed. This is a fab quote from Peter. He says, the vast majority of us go to our graves without knowing who we are. We unconsciously live someone else's life, or at least someone else's expectation for us. This does violence to ourselves, our relationship with God, and ultimately to others. So I am, amongst other things, I'm a life coach, and I get this great honor of working with people who are at a period of their life where they want change. And they come and they see me and we discuss things. Now, a lot of the time, my clients are very similar, very, very similar people. They've reached a point in their life where they want change. And normally when they come to me, they're very clear what they want. They come in and they tell me, this is what I want. These 3 things, I want a better job, I want a happier relationship, I want a bigger house. These are the 3 things I want. And I say, that's lovely, let's chat. And we chat, and by the end of the first session, they're like, well, I'm not too sure if those are exactly the things I want. So maybe they're a bit, and they tweak them a little bit. And the reason they do this, and normally after 6 weeks or 12 weeks, what they've actually accomplished is very different from what they thought they would at the beginning. It's very different. And I look back and I always ask, because I always feel a little bit guilty because we didn't actually achieve the thing that you wanted. I'm like, are you satisfied? And they're like, this is better than what I thought I wanted. So what happens for these people? Well, I think partly they come in not knowing who they are. They know who they're supposed to be. They know who society says they should be. They know who their culture, their history, their environment, their education, their families, they know who they're supposed to be. And they've lived that. And a lot of them have done it very successfully. But they come to me because they're disgruntled within themselves. They're not coming to me because they feel well. They come because they're disgruntled. They're dissatisfied. Something doesn't fit. Maybe because they're not too sure who they are. And in this journey, we begin to unpick what belongs to you and what belongs to your family, to your society, to your community. What belongs to your education? Who are you really? So I relate to this, which is probably why I became a coach. By the time I was 24, I had lived in 6 countries. Now, one of the things about living in many countries is you learn to fit in everywhere, I can go anywhere, I'm cool, I can handle it. The problem is, you also fit nowhere. Every culture is different. Every way they communicate, every expectation, every cultural reference. And each time, you're trying to figure out, how do I fit? And I would try and figure out, all right, so here I am, in this society, what's funny here? Right? Because it's not the same somewhere else. What's relevant here? Now, sometimes this is really funny, right? Sometimes there are lots of good stories. So I was about 18, 19, well, a bit older than that. I moved to America. In America, driving along with my sister on the motorway, the highway, on the motorway, driving along, and I see a sign that says, HOV. And I say to her, what does HOV mean? And she looks at me and says, please don't ever say that again. It's HOV. High occupancy vehicle. Thank you, Taurus. And I'm like, cool, I know this. I moved to London 4 years later, driving along with John Soper. We're going for a staff retreat in the car. I'm driving, I'm on the motorway, and I see F09. And I remember HOV. Don't you dare say HOV, HOV. And I say, John, what's F09? And he looks at me and goes, fog. So there you go. I tried hard. And sometimes it's funny, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not being able to go to sleep at night because you're turning over and over in your head what you said wrong. Did it land right? Does this fit? Do they like me? What do they think? Am I dressed okay? Do I look okay? Do I sound okay? Am I worthy to be in this place? And everything that's outside is defining who I am. And that's painful. It's a painful place. But it was a disconnection between who I truly am and adopting a false self that fits into wherever I need it to fit. Peter talks about, he compares the story of Jesus going into the wilderness and the temptations. And he talks about there are 3 temptations to be the false self. The way we're tempted to be the false self. First temptation, I am what I do. How many of us think, hi, my name's Aileen, this is what I do. I work for a bank, I work for a charity, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm just a mum. I'm a teacher, I'm a philosopher, right? This is what I do, and therefore what I do gives me worth. Did anyone fall into that category? And if you're ever in a place where you don't know how to define what you do, who am I? Who am I? The next one is, I am what I have. Look at my house, look at my car, look at my nice clothes, look at my designer shoes, look at my handbag. I am what I have. And when those things are stripped away, who am I? And finally, I am what others think. So this is probably where I fell in quite a lot. What do you think of me? Tell me Sasha, what you think of me so I can know who I am. Matt, what do you think of me? Am I funny? If you say yes, I am. Jenny, am I kind? If you say yes, I am. Thanks, Jenny. You see what I mean? But then what if somebody doesn't think very well of me? And I believe that just as strongly. What does my parent think of me? What does my child think of me? What does the worship leader think of me? What does my pastor think of me? And what if they all think contrary things? This is really difficult. I'm going to look quickly at the story of the Samaritan woman. I'm not going to read it all because it is long, but I just want to lay the ground. So we know the story. Jesus comes, I'll read this bit. So he comes to a town in Samaria, and he comes to a place, to a plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. And Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. And the Samaritan woman comes to draw water. Jesus says to her, "Will you give me a drink?" The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? For Jews do not associate with Samaritans." So let's stop here first. Now, for those of us who live in England, midday, the sun's out, nice. We all want to sit outside, put our feet in, except for Jenny, you're shaking your head like, no, I don't do that. Put our feet in the, what's it called, the Paddington Basin, it's all really nice, go to noon. Depending on your latitude, it's a very different experience. How many of you have gone to Portugal or Spain, and you go out at midday and everything's shut? Everything's shut, right? And of course, you're English, or you live in the Northern Hemisphere, and you're like, why is everything so quiet? Because people know that you don't work during that time. It's too hot. It's too hot. This is time to rest. Nobody's going out. And here this woman is, at noon, going to do what should have been done early in the morning. Why does she do this? She does this because she knows nobody else is going to be there. Why doesn't she want to see anybody else? Because she's ashamed. She's ashamed, she's embarrassed, she doesn't want to be judged. She knows if she goes to the well, all the other women know her business and will be talking about her. So she goes in the height of the day, when the sun is beating down on her. It is hard work to hide. It is hard work to hide. It is painful to hide. But she would rather hide and suffer under the noon sun than be subject to everybody else and everybody's opinions of her. She feels unworthy. She feels unworthy to be seen. And so here she is. Can you imagine the surprise? Not only does she feel unworthy, but she comes across not just a man, that's already shocking, a Jewish man who engages with her. In the height of the day, I see you. This is further than what she can understand. And they enter into this dialogue, and he's like, "Can you give me water?" And she's like, "Well, yes, but, why are you here?" And he's like, "Well, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks for a drink, you would have asked him. Otherwise, you would have asked me, and he would have given you living water." And the woman says, "You have nothing to draw with. The well's deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well?" And Jesus answers, he says, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst indeed. The water I give will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." And she says, "Sir, give me this water, that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw." So while she's talking to him, she can only put him in her frame of reference. Whatever you're saying doesn't fit into what I know about my family, what I know about my community. This is as far as it can go. But you know what? If you do have something special for me, give it to me so I can continue hiding. She's like, "Give me the water so that I don't have to come back here." And then he says to her, "Go call your husband and come back." And here is the crux. At this moment, everything in her life comes together. Her past, her shame, her fear, everything she's been trying to hide comes crashing together And she has this invitation from Jesus to acknowledge who she is. And she says, I have no husband. The shame that she has been carrying, Jesus is like, I see you. I spoke to you when I knew. Do you know who you are? Do you know who you are? Because I see. And if you know who you are, you will receive living water. It goes on. It says that the woman, I'm just jumped this bit. It says that the woman then goes back into the town, the place that she had come from, the people she was hiding from, the people she took great pains to hide from. And she doesn't go back and say, there's this really cool guy out there. She says, he told me all about me. She steps into the truth of herself, the truth of her own pain, the truth of her own shame, her own feelings, her own values, her own disgrace. And she recognizes, this is true to who I am. And come and see about the man who told me and accepted me for who I am. He didn't say to me, you know what, you're right, you don't have a husband, now go get married quickly and then we can come talk. He said, this is who you are. I accept you for who you are. How many of us actually believe God looks at us and accepts us for who we are? Isn't waiting for us to change a little bit, isn't waiting for us to get a little bit better. So if we do accept, or we do believe that God accepts us, can I ask you, why don't we accept ourselves? Look at the person sitting next to you. Right? This person sitting next to you, do you think that they're better than you? No, seriously. And a lot of the time we do, the person behind. But you know what the interesting thing is? That person thinks the same thing. So here we are living in this little crazy world where they must be better, they're peaceful, they've got it. We are. And we are beautiful and delightful in his eyes. And because, can you imagine this woman who's been hidden? She comes out and she says, come and see this man who told me all about me. She's not, the shame has gone. The shame has gone. Come and see this man who has told me all about me. So here's the question. Who are you? Who are you with your past? Who are you? Who are you with your feelings? Feelings are a funny thing, aren't they? I know Matt and Kirstina have spoken a lot about feelings. Being a parent is going to teach me a lot about being authentic. So I was in Budgeons with my daughter a couple of years ago, and she was about 7, 8 at that time. We're walking along, and she said something, and she mispronounced something. And a lady was walking down the aisle, looked at her, and sort of smiled, sort of like, oh, how sweet. And my daughter just literally, embarrassment. And she was like, and I, being a good mum, said, sweetie, you've got nothing to be embarrassed for. You've got absolutely nothing to be embarrassed about. It's absolutely fine. Nobody's judging you. And she stopped, and she turned to me, she said, Mother, she calls me Mother, Mother, will you just let me feel embarrassed? And I was like, ooh, alrighty then. Right? How many of us don't let ourselves feel the painful feels? We don't let ourselves feel the happy feels. We don't let ourselves feel. What I needed to do was trust that my daughter could feel it, experience it, and work through it. She's not still walking around saying, do you remember that lady in Budgeons? Do you remember that lady in Budgeons? She's okay, she's over it. Right? But we do that. We're like, feeling. Let's feel our feels. And who are you with your values? What do you truly value? Don't give me the Christian values stuff. I know that. That's nice. But what do you truly value? Do you truly value the relationships in your life? Do you truly? Do you truly value the work you do? Do you truly value The stuff that you're involved with. What are your true values? This is a great quote. I love to clothe this false self, and I wind experiences around myself with pleasures and glory like bandages in order to make myself visible to myself and to the world, as if I were an invisible body that could only become visible when something visible covered its surface. But there is no substance under the things with which I am clothed. I am hollow. And when they are gone, there will be nothing left of me but my own nakedness and emptiness and hollowness. Does it ever feel like that? We spend so much time weaving a story about ourselves, creating an image and a picture that looks good. But when that image and that picture's gone, what's left? The thing is, our God's interested in who we truly are. You know why? Because we are his breath walking this earth. He doesn't need to hide himself, and he doesn't need us to hide ourselves. Back to my daughter. That's not my daughter, but yeah. So for those of you who've into Disney at all or who have kids, you probably know all about Moana. And my daughter has been, Sasha's singing up front. My daughter's been completely obsessed with Moana for years. And this summer, we sung the soundtrack 1 million times. I kid you not. We sang it everywhere. We sang it yesterday in the kitchen on full volume. She's obsessed with Moana. And representation matters, and that's another story, but we'll talk about that. But Moana basically tells the story of a young woman, a young girl, who goes on a self-discovery journey. She does something that everyone tells her is unsafe because she knows she has to do it. And in the process of this, she saves her community. She heals her community. And there's a song, there's a verse in one song that wrecks me every single time I hear it. And this is her grandmother singing to her. She says, "You are your father's daughter, stubbornness and pride. Mind what he says, but remember, you may hear a voice inside. And if that voice starts to whisper, to follow the farthest star, Moana, that voice inside, is who you are." It wrecks me. It's going to make me cry now. It wrecks me. What is that small voice inside? What is that whisper inside of you? How many times do we contort ourselves to follow what we think we should? But that voice inside is saying, follow the farthest star. Do you know what the voice inside you is saying? Are you listening? Or are you silencing it? Silencing it with all the noise. The word you came up and said about there's a time to be silent. And Shane, you also talked, we had silence at the end of worship. The silence. What about this silence? There's a time to be silent. The Gospel according to Brené Brown. Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. Here's the thing. Authenticity is a practice. It is intentional. It is deliberate. It is not easy. It is scary. There is a risk. You might not like me. But it is intentional and deliberate. So Peter gives us some ways to develop our authentic self. And I will wrap up here. I'll go quickly. Pay attention to your interior in silence. Be quiet. Let yourself listen. How many things are you distracted by? Scrolling, TV, phone conversations, other people's opinions, the news. You know, I'm not distracted by foolish things. I'm only distracted by the BBC. You know? Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't engage with those things, but do you engage with them at the cost of silence? Can you sit by yourself and be silent? Find trusted companions. I had a painful incident about a couple of years ago with somebody who was going through their own thing and accused me of some really difficult things, and I found it really hard. And I went to 3 people who I trust, who I think know me. My husband, my oldest friend, and my prayer partner. And I said, this is what has been said to me. Is there any truth in this? Because at some points, you need people who know you too, to feed back. I didn't go to people who don't know me and be like, do you like me? Do you think this might be true? I went to people who know me. And they fed back to me. Because if it is true, I want to know. I want to grow. I want to change. But if it's not true, I need to let it go. Trusted companions to help you on the journey. Move out of your comfort zone. Now, this one, people, comfort is nice. It's nice. I like comfort. Change is difficult. Right? It's scary to move out of your comfort zone. It's scary to go into the unknown. It's scary to do things differently. But without scary, without challenge, there is no growth. And without growth, we're stagnant. God calls us and invites us to a place of change where he meets us with healing. And finally, pray for courage, because it's going to take some. We need to be courageous, and we need to be on our knees, looking for help, a very present help in time of trouble. And finally, and I'm ending now, when all of this is said and done, and we have that, I now know who I am, we still are going to have to deal with ourselves and the bits of ourselves that are fractured or broken, that are self-critical, that are, self-damning or self-promoting, whatever it is. And this is where we say, who does God say I am? Because you know what? If God says, I am a child of God, then guess what? Nothing that internal critical voice. How many of you, when you're brushing your teeth, you've got this voice in your head saying, if that sort of self-critical voice, shouldn't have done it that way, I could have been this, I could have been that. Ultimately, I am a child of God. I am accepted by Christ. If Christ can accept me, why can I not accept myself? And I'm set free. So many times we're like that woman going at noon, caught up in our shame, caught up in our guilt, caught up in our not good enough, our lack of worth. We're burdened. That's not what our journey is about. Our journey with Christ is about freedom. To shed off those things. And finally, we are complete. There's nothing missing. There's nothing defective. We are complete. Can you say to yourself, I am complete in Christ? This is it. And it's not, well, that's nice for her or him. This is for me. This is for you. Can I take this and believe it? As Keith said, can I believe it for me?